David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Breaking news as we come on the air. 2 National Guard members shot and wounded near the White House, and 2 powerful storm systems sweeping across the U.S. over the busy holiday travel week. First, the shooting of 2 National Guard members turning deadly. They were shot 2 blocks from the White House in what authorities are calling a targeted attack. The armed West Virginia National Guard members, a man and woman, deployed under President Trump's crackdown on crime in the nation's capital. Police, FBI, and ATF swarming the scene. Authorities say the suspect was shot and wounded and now under arrest. President Trump briefed at Mar-a-Lago. His response late today, Pierre Thomas at the scene. Also tonight, blinding snow, rain, and wind from Chicago to the Northeast. Cars and trucks sliding off highways. A record number of drivers expected on the roads. Major airports, including Chicago's O'Hare, reporting delays. And the cross-country storm for the return home. Lee Goldberg with the forecast. Tonight, the horrific images coming in. The high-rise inferno. The death toll rising from the massive fire at a huge apartment complex. Dozens killed, hundreds missing. 7 buildings, each 31 stories tall, consumed by fire. Here in the U.S., Georgia dropping the election interference case against President Trump and his co-defendants. The last criminal case accusing him of trying to illegally overturn the 2020 presidential election. Tonight, the leaked phone calls. President Trump defending his personal envoy in his push to end the war in Ukraine. Steve Witkoff reportedly overheard coaching the Russians on how to handle President Trump during negotiations. Disturbing new details about the death of Dallas Cowboy star Marshawn Kneeland. Police say dash cam video shows Kneeland driving more than 145 miles per hour, hitting another car and escaping before taking his own life. Celebrity chef Guy Fieri suffering a gruesome leg injury while shooting his new TV series, undergoing emergency surgery. News on his condition tonight. And America Strong, the supermarket checkout clerk offering advice to a customer that she credits with saving her life.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. I'm Whit Johnson in for David tonight, and we begin with that breaking news. 2 National Guard members shot and critically wounded near the White House. The chaotic scene unfolding in the nation's capital. Police, FBI, ATF, and the National Guard all responding. Authorities calling it a targeted attack. Late today, Mayor Muriel Bowser confirming both Guard members from West Virginia, a man and woman, are in critical condition. The suspect shot and wounded. He's now in custody. The National Guard deployed to Washington, D.C. under President Trump's crackdown on violent crime. Late today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying the president now wants an additional 500 troops in the city. President Trump responding from Mar-a-Lago, praising the National Guard and saying the suspect, quote, will pay a very steep price. We have team coverage tonight. ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas leads us off from the scene.
Tonight, horror in the heart of the nation's capital. A gunman opening fire on 2 armed members of the National Guard, just 2 blocks from the White House, in what officials say was a targeted attack.
They said National Guard shot.
Everybody back up.
Gunshots erupting just after 2 p.m. near the Farragut West Metro Station where the National Guard was on patrol. ABC cameraman Chris Plater telling our Jay O'Brien he overheard the gunfire.
And what I heard were, like pop, pop, pop. It could have been a steel plate or something, but then boom, boom, boom. And so I'm starting to hear these big guns.
It appears to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard.
Let's start moving!
First responders seen racing to the scene, performing CPR, desperately trying to save those wounded Guard members. Right there on the sidewalk, shattered glass everywhere. Both victims, a man and a woman, members of West Virginia's National Guard. Tonight in critical condition after being rushed to local hospitals.
One National Guard was lying on his side. And then I looked at the other National Guard member that was down, and I saw compressions going on.
There was countless personnel around him, and they put him in a truck, and a minute later they were gone.
Authorities describing a terrifying scene, with the suspect allegedly tracking the National Guardsmen before opening fire. Fellow soldiers jumping into action to stop the suspect, who sources say came to the U.S. from Afghanistan in 2021.
They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring them into custody. They actually were able to intervene and to kind of hold down the suspect after he had been shot on the ground until law enforcement got there within moments.
Just 2 blocks from the scene, the White House put on lockdown. President Trump, who was already in Mar-a-Lago ahead of Thanksgiving, posting about the suspect on social media, saying the animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen will pay a very steep price.
We will make America totally safe again, and we will bring the perpetrator of this barbaric attack to swift and certain justice.
The deployment of the National Guard in D.C. and other major cities has been controversial, with local authorities questioning whether they were needed with crime falling. In Washington, the National Guard has patrolled in low-crime, high-tourist locations like the National Mall and has been generally well received, by and large not involved in any controversy.
The reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard who responded due to their extensive training to secure American lives today.
Tonight, there's an intensive investigation digging into the man's background to determine a motive. I'm told everything is on the table as authorities look for any ties to international or domestic terrorism. They very much want to know why these guardsmen were targeted.
Yes, that investigation just getting started. Pierre Thomas tonight, thank you. And President Trump has deployed the National Guard to multiple cities. The Trump administration now signaling the president will send hundreds more troops to D.C. ABC's Rachel Scott with late details from the White House.
Tonight, in the wake of the shooting just 2 blocks from the White House, President Trump ordering the Pentagon to send an additional 500 National Guard troops to Washington.
We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand.
President Trump pledging the man who shot the troops will pay a very steep price. Vice President J.D. Vance acknowledging the tragedy in a visit to Fort Campbell.
It's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America.
The president not here at the White House tonight. He's down at Mar-a-Lago for the Thanksgiving holiday. But again, he plans to send an additional 500 National Guard troops here to Washington, D.C. with.
All right, Rachel Scott, we appreciate it. We move on now to the millions of Americans running into 2 major storms over the holiday weekend. Thanksgiving travel expected to break records. Winter weather from the upper Midwest to western New York. Whiteout conditions possible. Winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour. Bumper-to-bumper traffic across America today, New York to Chicago to Los Angeles. Millions of travelers also facing a coast-to-coast storm for the return trip home. Lee Goldberg standing by with the forecast. But first, here's ABC's Alex Perez in Chicago.
Tonight, the massive Thanksgiving storm pounding the upper Midwest, turning highways into white-knuckle whiteouts at the height of the holiday travel rush. Multiple jackknifed tractor trailers causing a massive pileup on I-94 in Minnesota just across the border from Fargo, North Dakota. First responders battling whipping winds as they worked to clear the scene. In North Dakota, blizzard-like conditions and icy roads, sending cars sliding. Watch as this white truck careens into a roadside ditch, narrowly missing state troopers nearby.
Numerous winter weather alerts in effect. Everything from winter storm warnings to winter weather advisories for some challenging travel conditions.
Some travelers hitting the road early.
We got up earlier. We all made the commitment. We didn't know what the roads were like.
You can see it right there on the board here at Chicago's O'Hare, one of the nation's busiest airports. Passengers are dealing with more than 1,000 delays today.
And at the nation's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, officials say a KLM flight to Amsterdam was abruptly halted after a passenger opened the emergency door and deployed the slide while the plane was taxiing.
The situation getting worse, and he opened our left door, so we got a slide deployment as well.
Tonight, that man facing numerous charges, including reckless conduct. Police say he appeared to be suffering a mental health crisis.
And with the travel headache isn't over just yet, another powerful storm is expected to impact the Midwest after Thanksgiving and into the weekend.
Shaping up to be a 1-2 punch, Alex. Thanks. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our New York station WABC. And Lee, that first storm still hitting some areas right now.
Michigan is getting pummeled with snow right now, especially the Upper Peninsula. Blizzard warnings up to a foot and a half of snowfall, 6 inches, Traverse City down to Kalamazoo. Winter wind alerts all the way from the Great Lakes into western New York State. And the storm moves into Canada, but the cold winds behind it trigger the lake effect. That's why you see the warnings. By the way, it's mild on the East Coast right now. It's about to get colder along the I-95 corridor with showers. Now, Thanksgiving weather map is fairly quiet, but around the Great Lakes, treacherous travel, Arctic winds in the Great Lakes, and blustery in the Northeast. We have 35-mile-per-hour gusts in New York City, maybe some balloon restrictions for the parade, and 30-mile-per-hour gusts in Philly. And then the storms coming in the Pacific Northwest. That's our cross-country storm. It expands across the Northwest as we go into the day on Friday. Lake effect snows continue. Could be a foot of snow south of Buffalo, north of Syracuse, and 40-mile-per-hour gusts along the I-95 corridor with some snow showers. Then we move into Saturday, and the snow's hitting high gear across the middle of the country, accumulating snows Omaha to Chicago. It's snowing in Chicago Saturday morning to midday Sunday. Major delays over the weekend, heavy rain to the south. By Sunday, rain is getting the I-95 corridor. The storm is lifting to the north, so it's mainly rain unless you're in upstate New York or interior New England. Light rain along the coast. Whit.
Something to watch closely. Lee Goldberg tonight. We appreciate it. Now to the horrific scene unfolding overseas, the massive high-rise inferno in Hong Kong. 7 apartment buildings on fire, each one standing 31 stories tall. The death toll rising, dozens killed, hundreds still missing. Here's ABC's chief international correspondent, James Longman.
Horror in Hong Kong tonight. At least 36 people are dead and more than 250 still missing in this devastating fire ripping through this huge apartment complex. 7 31-story tower blocks burning out of control for hours. Flames glowing in just about every one of the 2,000 apartments. Black smoke visible for miles around. More than 4,500 people live here, young and old, and it's unclear how much time they had to escape. Anxious residents evacuated to nearby shelters wait for news on their loved ones. This man's screaming for his wife, who he says couldn't get out. More than 800 firefighters and paramedics on the scene fighting the flames.
The temperature inside the buildings concerned are very high, so it's quite difficult for us to enter the building and go upstairs to conduct firefighting and rescue operation.
The fire started at around 3 p.m. local time on the bamboo scaffold covering the buildings. By 6 p.m, a Category 5 was announced, Hong Kong's highest alert. It seems that bamboo and the green netting covering it may have accelerated the blaze, with embers jumping from building to building until the entire complex was engulfed. It is now early morning in Hong Kong, and this fire is still burning some 16 hours later. And in the last few hours, authorities say they've arrested 3 individuals on charges of manslaughter.
Just an awful scene unfolding. James Longman, our thanks to you. Back here in the U.S., a major legal chapter now closed for President Trump. The state of Georgia dropping the election interference case against him and his remaining co-defendants. The last criminal case accusing him of trying to illegally overturn the 2020 presidential election. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky.
Tonight, the last case charging President Trump with crimes for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election dismissed by a Georgia judge. It was the case that produced the only presidential mugshot in American history, a picture Trump proudly hung outside the Oval Office when he returned. A sweeping indictment against Trump and more than a dozen of his allies brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis.
The defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
But the case hit a snag when Willis was disqualified over a romantic relationship with the lead prosecutor she hired. Today, a new prosecutor in charge, Pete Skandalakis, decided the citizens of Georgia are not served by pursuing this case. He argued it is not illegal to question or challenge election results. And he wrote off a key piece of evidence, Trump's phone call attempting to pressure Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
While the call is concerning, the new prosecutor wrote, reasonable minds could differ as to how to interpret the call, adding that Trump is entitled to the benefit of the doubt. The new prosecutor, Witt, also cited the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity and said it just wasn't feasible to put Trump on trial in Georgia while he's still in office. Witt.
Aaron Katersky for us tonight. Now to President Trump, defending his personal envoy in his push to end the war in Ukraine. Steve Witkoff reportedly overheard and leaked phone calls with the Russians, coaching them on how to handle President Trump in order to convince him to accept their demands for a peace deal with Ukraine. The president dismissing the report, saying that's what a deal maker does. It comes as President Trump's proposed Thanksgiving deadline to reach a deal appears increasingly unlikely. Here in New York City tonight, on the eve of the 99th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, huge crowds turning out to watch crews inflate the giant balloons. Mayor Eric Adams says tight security will be in place for the parade tomorrow. More than 1,000 police officers will be positioned along the 2.5-mile route. Helicopters and drones monitoring from the air. More than 3 million people expected to line the streets. When we come back, 2 separate earthquakes rock parts of the West. Authorities releasing new dash camera video of the high-speed chase and the death of Dallas Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Kneeland. A famous chef speaks out after a freak accident on the set of his new TV series. And the new warning from online retail giant Amazon, what to watch out for this holiday shopping season. Next tonight, disturbing new details in the death of Dallas Cowboys star Marshawn Kneeland. Police say dash cam video shows Kneeland driving away from a traffic stop, reaching speeds topping 145 miles per hour. Authorities say after crashing his car, the 24-year-old ran away before taking his own life. His family says Kneeland had a history of mental health concerns. In the West, 2 small earthquakes rattling residents. A 4.0 magnitude quake striking Northern California about 5 miles east of Gilroy. And in Hawaii, an earthquake of 4.6 magnitude striking on the southern side of the Kilauea volcano. It was felt as far away as Honolulu. No reports of damage in either quake. When we come back, celebrity chef Guy Fieri, why he's on crutches this holiday, and the scam warning from Amazon. To the Index now, celebrity chef Guy Fieri says he's recovering after a freak accident on the set of his new show, Flavortown Food Fight. Fieri telling Fox Digital that he slipped and fell in an awkward way, tearing his quad. He needed immediate surgery and is now using a wheelchair and crutches. Days before Black Friday, Amazon with a warning for its 300 million users. The online retail giant saying scammers are trying to access sensitive account details or even personal or financial information. Amazon says criminals often are attempting to impersonate the company and consumers should be on alert. Tonight, Pope Leo is preparing to take his first international trip, taking him to the Middle East. The American Pope traveling to Turkey and Lebanon for a 6-day tour beginning tomorrow. He's planning to deliver a message of unity. His trip to Beirut will come just days after an Israeli military strike near the city. He's honoring promises made by Pope Francis to visit both countries. When we come back, the advice from the friendly supermarket cashier and how it may have saved a customer's life.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Chewy.
Finally tonight, America Strong, the life-saving advice from a friendly cashier. Tonight in Fargo, North Dakota.
Good morning.
A simple conversation in the grocery line at checkout number 10.
Are you ready for the holidays? Getting ready. Getting ready.
Leading to a life-saving discovery.
Gotta have that spirit.
Elvira Gentry is a beloved figure at the Cashwise grocery store.
All right. My favorite, check here.
I'll walk all the way to the other end of the store just to come to her checkout.
Back in June, Pam Thornton began chatting with Elvira while loading up her groceries when Elvira mentioned she had just had her mammogram.
And she goes, oh, I had my mammogram, I got squished and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Pam acknowledging she'd been putting hers off for a long time, but Elvira encouraged her to make an appointment.
She said, but I'm going to listen to you, girl, is what she said.
Just days later, Pam learned she had stage 1A breast cancer. Doctors removed all of it in surgery, and she's now doing radiation and maintenance chemo. Her outlook is strong, and she says it's all thanks to Elvira.
I was so lucky that it got caught when it did, and if it hadn't been for her, it never would have happened.
Then she shared with me about the results, and it just broke my heart.
And I'm like, but I want you to know that you're responsible for saving my life.
This Thanksgiving, both grateful for each other.
You know, I love my customers, and I love what I do. And you gotta love what you do to do what you do.
What started as a quick chat in a checkout line, becoming a bond these two say will last forever.
Love Love you, girl.
Love you too,
Okay.
lady.
Bye-bye.
And we love it too. A big thanks to WDAY for their help with that story. Have a great night.
David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. And now, ABC's World News Tonight has won the Emmy for Best Live News Program for the third year in a row.